Hello again, Aric Hall with the Blaze of Glory. Well, today we're going to go through a set of pictures about a place that I'm sure you've never seen before. It's the Popo Agie. Yes, I know, the Popo Agie. I'm sure where you live, there's probably plenty of places that tourists are known to mispronounce. Where I'm from, it's Mexia, Texas, or Palestine, Texas. Another popular town that's mispronounced, Helena, Montana. What about Ojo Caliente? Or Worcester, Massachusetts? Or Greenwich, Connecticut? If you have been to Disney World, you may have stayed in a motel in Kissimmee, Florida. Or in Louisiana, how about Natchitoches? And my hometown is not pronounced Grand Saline, Texas. One of my personal favorites, for those of you who are old enough to remember, TV series WKRP in Cincinnati. They had a news narrator on that program who was reporting on a story of something that happened down in Chihuahua, Mexico. Well, we've learned from watching Forrest Fenn. When Forrest Fenn visited Lander, and he says, how can you visit Lander and not go to the little Popo Agie River? Well, since then we've all learned that's not how that's pronounced. Probably Forrest was simply referring to how the Popo Agie was a special river, rather than him actually going out to the branch of the Popo Agie that's called the Little Popo Agie. There's 3 branches of that river, but it's only the middle fork that goes up to Sinks Canyon. It's the only place that looks like you would ever want to go. As we leave Lander, headed up in elevation, following along the middle fork of the Popo Agie River, one of the first things we come to is a fork. On the left is Sawmill Creek. Now, this creek is not exactly easy to get into. I think there's other private property in the way. There's almost no place you can park. One of the things I found really obnoxious about this trip up to Sinks Canyon is there are power lines in most of my pictures. Now, there's nothing that says wilds of nature like power lines and telephone poles. I'm sure that many of you can see that the dangers that would be involved with me taking a picture on the side of a busy highway around a blind corner where the shoulder is not even wide enough to safely pull over. So I took my pictures with the top half of my body hanging out the window of the car. I used one hand to hold the camera, another hand to hold my eyeglasses, and I was steering the car with my knee so I could safely navigate around those corners. Safety first. But as we progress a little bit further, I have a picture with Sawmill Creek on the left, and the entrance on the right, we're going into what is the middle fork of the Popo Agie, and just around the corner is Sinks Canyon. At last, we have arrived at Sinks Canyon State Park. One of the information signs tells us that Sinks Canyon is an entry point, from the Wind River Range going into the Wind River Valley down below where Lander is. Everything around here is somehow tied to the wind. There are apparently a lot of conflicted people around here. Here we have a sign that's upstream from the sinks, which tells us that the Popo Agie stands for the beginning of waters. Later, we have a sign down at the rise that tells us Popo Agie means grass river. Now that might be interesting since Forrest Fenn had pictures made of grass in the river at his bathing spot and I think at his fishing spot. The sinks is simply a name given to this geologic process where water goes into a porous tunnel that has been slowly eroded through the limestone below. You can see the clear water of the Middle Fork Popo Agie River that's coming from upstream. And then it makes a slight curve as it approaches the rock face. You can see a lot of large boulders. It's like a sandy beach as you get in close to the opening of the sinks where the water goes down inside the mountain. As we move down to the rise, we see another information sign. This is the one that tells us the Popo Agie stands for Grass River, as opposed to the beginning of waters. There are a couple of signs here that explain the fish that we're about to see as being trout, but specifically rainbow trout. The trout swim up the Middle Fork Popo Agie up to the rise. This is where the water comes back up out of the rock down below. As I left the state park, I continued on uphill until the pavement ended. I took a couple of pictures up there, but the smoky haze from the wildfire, which would covered the region, kind of made the pictures look awful. Sinks Canyon is only one of 4 places I visited in the Rocky Mountains that have this same effect of the water going through the soft rock below and making a subterranean tunnel, and then having the water emerge elsewhere. You may recall from my pictures from my previous trip in northern Yellowstone at the Boiling River, where this channel of boiling hot water goes into the ground and emerges back out on the surface just before merging into the Gardiner River. While visiting Glacier National Park, I found another one of these features out in the southeast corner of the park. It's called Running Eagle Falls. Again, this crystal clear water coming down the mountainside bores a hole through the soft rock and then emerges down below. It looks like it's actually coming right out of the side of the mountain. This tunnel of water emerges, and you can see the clear water as it goes out to the valley below. The fourth of these features that I visited is called Natural Bridge Falls. Now this is just below a mountain, which interestingly enough is called Teepee Mountain, where the Boulder River forms one of these subterranean channels of water. This is about a 30-minute drive south of Big Timber, Montana. As far as a volume of water, this is the largest of the 4. And it's in beautiful country. Now they've had a lot of trees that were lost to a previous wildfire, but I certainly recommend the visit. When I returned to Lander, I stayed at a cheap motel right on the banks of the Middle Fork of the Popo Agie River. One of the things that I noticed was in the parking lot was this massive bronze statue. And it's called Over the Top. The plaque says it's made by the Eagle Bronze Foundry there in Lander. Now, I know nothing about the Eagle Foundry, but having known Forrest Fenn and his history for his own bronze foundry back when he was in Lubbock, it was something I had to go read into. Apparently, there's a lot of these bronze statues around town. Well, what do I think about my trip to Lander and to the Little Popo Agie, or the Middle Fork Popo Agie River, and to Sinks Canyon? As far as the treasure hunt, I think it was a bit of a disappointment. I'm not sure who got us started on taking an interest, because I know multiple Forrest Fenn searchers have been up to Sinks Canyon. But I'm not at all satisfied that the clues can get you there. Yes, there's a way that you can manipulate warm waters, and there are a couple of canyons upstream, and there's plenty of creeks to choose from. But that's just the problem. If you're coming down the Wind River and you want to go up your creek, which one do you go? There's no sign or clues that say go this way. Even if you take the Middle Fork Popo Agie, there's like a spider web of little creeks and dry washes that, you know, as you're going uphill would fork off of that. And, you know, how would you know which one to take? And if we're going up your creek, the Middle Fork Popo Agie is technically a river, not a creek. Remember to click like, share, subscribe, and donate.